with me. Now I have to make sure I know my stuff. They're more qualified for the fight scenes and action scenes than what I am. Alright, so the influence of fight scenes and action scenes on visual storytelling from a pro wrestler's perspective. So a bit about myself first. I've got a drama undergrad from Stellenbosch University focusing on the behind scenes stuff. I got awarded my Jiu-Jitsu black belt end of March. I've been a boxing coach and a pro wrestler for over 14 years. So that is some pictures over the years of my career. I've been through Table Set on Fire, I've boxed, I've been boxing coaching, I've been slammed in many different ways. I've jumped off the top rope from tables, I've been pepper sprayed because I'm all for that realism. I'm not smart, and you get some nice adventures chasing this sort of career. So much so that you have a friend sending you a screenshot of you being in someone else's Tinder profile. That's the closest I'll ever be to a niche celebrity. Success due to low standards. Alright, so what is visual storytelling? This is the act of communicating information with visual content. As a performer, we use actions and facial expressions to communicate with the audience. Alright? And for everything that we do, we have to ask ourselves, why? What reaction do we want from the audience? What story or themes do we want to communicate? So, I'm not the biggest heavyweight, so if I'm facing a roided out dude that's 3 times my size, and he's as hard as bricks, every time I punch him in the head, I have to convey that hurt. Every time he strikes me, I have to sound it like he's massive and really strong, right? I need to convey that struggle with the audience. Right. So, that leads us to the 7 steps of a wrestling match. Alright, this is the formula used by WWE. I was lucky enough to have attended a training seminar with PJ Black. He wrestled as Justin Gabriel in the WWE for a bit of time. Alright, we're going to go through all those details of those steps shortly, but it's important to know that this formula was created in order to convey struggle coherently. This increases our chances of success of getting crowd reactions and actually getting them emotionally invested. Alright? As a wrestler, I might not get the chance to hold a microphone and communicate to the crowd what I'm about. I can't make them boo me, I can't make them cheer me. I have to do everything visual. Alright? Things like this go out, last moment. Okay, so the shine. This is to establish the baby face or the good guy. This is done through entrances, fancy moves, and technical ability. The bad guy walks out, he taunts the crowd, he gets everybody to him. The baby face comes out, he high fives all the kids, right? Easy to tell who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. Okay, we need to use this to establish characteristics like strength, savviness, and a moral standpoint for the babyface. And then that leads us to the cutoff. This is when the heel or the bad guy starts to control the fight. We need to establish characteristics like desperation, willingness to cheat, a challenge in strength or skill, and an opposite moral standpoint. Okay? And then it's the heat. This is building disdain for the heel. As a performer, it is much easier for me to get you to hate me than it is to get you to like me. Bad guys have all the fun. We do all the hard work. Right? We can do this by using taunts, cheap shots, revealing a master plan, or creating an unfavorable choice for the good guy. Okay. And then we have our home spots. This is creating an expectation for a comeback. Right? We're emphasizing on that struggle for the good guy. The face starts to fight back just to get beat down again. doesn't necessarily have to work like that. Get beat down again. The bad guy can just try and run away. The bad guy can't get in a meaningful shot, right? This is used to continue dramatic tension. We use this to switch between cheers and boos from the audience, and that's a good indication to know that we have invested in this match, right? And then we can establish the face's reapproach to a strategy to win the match. Okay, then we have the comeback. This is when the face starts to successfully fight back. This way we can establish determination or reaffirm those traits that we showed in the shot. Okay. And then we have false finishes. These are the intense moments used to make the audience think that the fight's about to end, but it doesn't. We can keep dramatic tension by doing this, by keeping the audience guessing. And then we have the finish. This is obviously how the fight ends. It can be climatic or anticlimactic. It depends on the payoff that we want. Alright? Do we want the conflict to be over or do we want it to continue? This is important because how long do we want to drag the story on? Do these two need to face each other again? And the best way to keep that conflict to continue is to have the good guy lose. Alright? This is the best time to show betrayals, building an alliance, dirty tactics, showing a lack of experience with the good guy, overcoming odds, establish a new technique, change a moral standpoint. In pro wrestling, we have this thing called face turns and heel turns, right? This is when a good guy becomes a bad guy, or a bad guy becomes a good guy. Okay. All best finishes lead to character growth or development. It's just a guideline. You can skip some of these steps, if not all of them. Alright? Here we have a picture of Bull Goldberg. You can't see that too well, but in his WCW run, he had a lot of squash matches. There was shine and finish. That's it. This was just to portray domination because Goldberg doesn't have great wrestling ability, so they cheated that. But it worked because he could really convey intensity well. And then we have One Punch Man, which is a satire of the superhero genre. All the fights with Saitama are anticlimactic, but because it's a satire, it's actually very comical. It works in that genre. Okay. And then we can use this guideline to just structure conflict without fighting. That's why I've got a picture of Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh! Here. Alright? Good cuddle. Haha, you fell into my trap call. No worry, Yugi. If you just believe in the heart of the steps, you'll make this conflict very emotionally invested. So we can apply these steps into action scenes. These are usually with large groups of people, be that protagonist or antagonist. Enemies don't have any significant impact in the story. We are invested in the main character, so if the bad guy just throws Johnny out the window and Johnny's gone, we don't really feel anything for Johnny. Okay, so the main purpose here is spectacle or to grip attention and curiosity. Alright? So we can make use of fancy fight choreography, stunts, props, camera work, and time edit. Alright? The main thing here that we can achieve is to establish a character or a theme. So if we look at pro wrestling examples, we have battle royales and Royal Rumbles, where we have a lot of wrestlers, and the gimmick of the match is to throw guys over the top rope until there's one person left. That's the winner, there you go, main event. That's the main story that we're trying to establish. We can also establish other rivalries within this type of match, but they're not as important as the main event. Okay? We've got spectacles in movies, like John Wick and Jackie Chan movies. I suggest you go watch a lot of Jackie Chan movies, they're absolutely amazing. The body comedy is phenomenal. Right? And then we have establishing characters and themes. The opening scene in The Dark Knight is a great example, because this establishes the Joker as a character and the law of escalation that he represents. Alright? And then you see this the opposite, the complete opposite of that with Batman and his actions. It's actually a great taste of what's to come in the movie. It actually builds your expectations. And then we have our fight scenes, where we can apply these steps as well. These are generally between two established characters with a clear motive or reason for being there. The scene's outcome has a consequence for who wins and who loses. There is weight behind this fight. There is a clear impact in character development and story. Okay, and then we get to our technical narrative of the fight scene. How the fight is constructed in a scene. We need to consider who our characters are. Are they male, female? Are they strong, weak? Are they big, small? Are they trained fighters or are they untrained fighters? Are they brave or are they cowards? It's very important to understand that, because that reflects the actions that they need to take. As a wrestler, if I'm cowardly, I am not going to try and be brave. I'm not depicting the right character there. Right? I must run away, try and be sneaky, that sort of thing. Okay? So when we look at a fight scene, we need to think of it like a debate to prove a point. For every question or argument, there needs to be an answer or rebuttal. Okay. So let's apply these 7 steps with the famous fight scene between Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris, Way of the Dragon. We have to shine, establishing Bruce Lee's character throughout the movie. But if you watch this fight scene stand alone, you can see it in the warm-up before the fight begins. As Bruce copies Chuck Norris's actions. Chuck Norris is the first one to turn his back to start warming up. Bruce Lee reciprocates this. This shows respect in terms of that romanticized martial artist's code. Okay? Despite all the events leading up to this, Bruce had the perfect opportunity for a cheap shot. But the type of character that he was portraying, that would go against him. That's very important. Right? We're still trying to communicate a story of actions here. Then we have the cutoff. Chuck Norris immediately controls the pace of the fight, countering every maneuver and striking Bruce down. Then we have the heat. This is when Chuck strikes Bruce down and he waves his finger as a taunt, saying, "No you don't, you're not going to beat me." That's what it's implying. There's no verbal communication here. That's what makes it so great. And then we have Bruce sitting up in clear frustration. He cannot beat this power. Then we have the hope spot. This is when we see Bruce applying a different strategy, purely focusing on defense and controlling range between them. This helps Bruce get a read on his opponent so that he can start picking out weaknesses. You'll notice that the fight's pace and rhythm changes here. Then we have the comeback. Bruce starts turning defense into offense, countering Chuck and exploiting those weaknesses. Every time Chuck gets knocked down, he shows worry, frustration, and fatigue. So we can clearly see that the momentum is shifting. Then we have the false finish. Chuck's leg and arm is injured. He's essentially neutralized and he can't really continue to fight, but he chooses to do so. And then we have the finish. Bruce looks down at that leg, shaking his head, implying, "No, don't do this." Chuck proceeds to have one more final attack. Bruce blocks that punch and immediately goes for the neck break. Alright? Very powerful, very sudden. But there was no other way to end it. If somebody continues to be a threat when they can't fight, they will continue to be a threat when they can. You cannot let that threat escalate any further. You can see the look of regret on Bruce's face. Alright, you realize what he just did. This picture over here, you see that Bruce gently lays him down, not dropping him. Alright? gently laying him down. This still shows that respect. Right? Dropping someone can be very disrespectful, even if their body's limp. Okay. And then he continues to get Chuck's karate blue jacket, lays it over him, continuing to show that respect. That makes the finish way more powerful than the neck snap itself. You're communicating something. But there is a problem. Without a technical narrative showing struggle, a story can fall flat. How do we get behind a character that doesn't have struggle and vulnerabilities? You know, they need to be relatable. If we take Superman, what is Superman without kryptonite? He would be a very boring character, wouldn't he? However, technical narratives can fall flat without characters that we can get behind. There was a time when John Cena's run was getting stale because it was the same thing over and over again. There was no character development. It was still the same Super Cena. Then we have Roman Reigns' face run. It's just a character that we couldn't get behind. It wasn't believable. It was just one of Vince McMahon's big muscle guys trying to be pushed down our throats. Right? You can check any copycat Bruce Lee movie. Good fight scenes, but it falls flat. It's nothing new. You can't make a bootleg of Bruce Lee and think that that's gonna work, you know? Or any anime where you have filler episodes and that fight has no weight behind it because it's just characters doing it for the fun of it. It's all flashy, but there's just no weight behind it. So there we enter our emotional narrative, the reason why characters are there, what's their motivation, their goal. What are the consequences after the outcome of chasing this goal? Do they have weight? What mental state are these characters in? Are the characters and motivations relatable? Do they have values that we can get behind? In wrestling, we have promos to convey this, and in other media we have character development. The whole process here is to build a relationship with that character. If we cannot get this character to build a relationship with the audience, we'll never get the audience behind them. Alright? And this comes with a very personal story of my first wrestling match. I'm not somebody that you'll have in your Tinder profile. Character growth is a thing. We've come a long way. Alright? This was my first wrestling match. My mother was there. She knew it was scripted. She knew it was a work, but she bought into it. She was crying. I get smacked with the chair. My one friend in the crowd goes, "Hey, that chair's plastic." I get smacked again. That chair is still plastic. Quickly hide, do the blade job, 2 disciplines, makes it nice and runny. And as I got up, my mother was in tears. Alright, there's a strong emotional narrative there because I have a strong relationship with my mother. Nobody will love you like your mother does. Right? And that can really tell you a lot. Okay. Oh. Okay. I just wanted to highlight some examples of strong technical narrative and emotional narrative. We've got Hajime no Ippo, very great anime about boxing. It teaches you about boxing along the way, using real life examples, even using the Dempsey role as a solution to Ippo's fighting style. And that when he actually uses it in a fight, it shows that character growth and development, improving the determination, right? And then we've got the Ric Flair versus HBK retirement match. One of my favorites, very iconic moment where Shawn Michaels says, "I'm sorry, I love you." Continues to kick Rick in the face, going for the pin, retiring Ric Flair on the spot. And then there's a nice fight scene in They Live from John Carpenter, where Roddy Piper, who plays John Nada, fights Frank, played by Keith Richards? I forget. Anyway, that fight scene in They Live, it's fantastic. It feels real. It's a brawl between 2 blue-collar workers, one trying to protect his ignorance, and the other one like, hey, I need a buddy in this. I've seen the truth, right? A lot of weight behind it. Beautiful stuff, right? So I can only scratch the surface on this topic. In this talk, 30 minutes is not enough. I'm going to be covering all these things on my YouTube channel for funsies. So if you're interested in hearing more, it's One Man Stampede. And yeah, that's about it. So now it's time for questions if you have any. No pressure from the stunt guys here.